Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Jaya Gaurari, Jaya Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Jaya Hare, Jaya Nityananda, Nityananda, Nityananda Ram, Nityananda, Nityananda, Nityananda Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We will sing Jai Radha Madhava and then read from Bhagavad Gita. I hope everyone knows the words. If you don't know the words, I suppose you can just listen. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana, Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana, Yamuna Tiravana Chahare, Yamuna Tiravana Chahare, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana, Yamuna Tiravana Chahare, Yamuna Tiravana Chahare, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada, Jai Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaur Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaur Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, God Hare Bol. Shri Hari Nam Sankirtan Yagya ki jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai, Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Agyantimirandasya Ganandana Shalakaya Chaksharan Militam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Ayam Danati Swaparantikam Vanchakapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Bhutay Mahatere Mahapara Vibhur Nirmayakshete Yadamasha Purusha Bhakte Gana Sada Sada Satmaka Yalang Krishishta Bhagavan Vachamsi Me Hare Krishna. So I'll be speaking in English. So Deutsch sprechen, that side.
Übersetzung ist hier.
Bitte. So first question is, how many of you are here for the first time? You've seen Hare Krishna for the first time, okay? So we should say a few words about who we are. Actually, whatever we sing and play is not a modern tradition. It's very ancient tradition, and it's part of the spiritual culture which was there before any religions or any nations appeared on the face of the earth. So, believe it or not, there have been a time when there was one culture, one nation, and one big spiritual family all over the world, and everyone lived in peace and harmony. And it was all based on very ancient spiritual knowledge, which is the original spiritual knowledge, which comes from the original Supreme Lord, whom we call Krishna or Vishnu, but people in different cultures, they use different names, but it doesn't matter what name you call God, he's still the same person. We may wonder why he's the one, but he has so many names. But even each of you has at least 3 names, right? Your first name, your second name, and your surname. So if we, and plus nicknames and whatever other names you might use. So even if we have so many names, why God cannot have unlimited number of names? And The song we sang, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, was consisting of the original names of the Supreme Lord, which are recommended in very ancient scripture. And if anyone is familiar with Vedas, this country was always famous for the biggest Sanskrit scholars. The biggest Sanskrit scholars in the world were always Germans, starting with Max Muller. And so if you're familiar with Vedas, you would probably know that the main Vedic scriptures are Upanishads. And amongst Upanishads, there is one specific which is describing our age, which is called Kali Yuga. And so this Upanishad is describing how we can become free from the problems of this age. And as we know, there are many problems we are facing. Prayena alpayusha sabya kalavasmin yuge jana manda sumanda mataya manda bhagyahi padrutaha. That's the Sanskrit from Bhagavad Puran or Srimad Bhagavatam. First canto is describing in the very beginning what are the problems of the people of this age. Prayena alpa ayusha. Ayush means life, like you have Ayurveda, right? Ayu means life. So alpa ayush, so very short life. Before, people used to live hundreds and thousands of years, but in this age, it's a great achievement if someone lives up to 100 years even. And we can see that the duration of life is shortened by so many bad habits, worries, and diseases, pandemics. So we can see that people of this age have very short lifetimes. Kalavasmi Yugejana, and pretty much it is the same for all of them, for all of us who live in this age. And Manda, people of this age are very lazy. They're very active if it comes to sense gratification, but very lazy when it comes to self-realization. So for material things, everyone is very enthusiastic, but for spiritual life, nobody has time. That's the problem. And Sumanda Matayo, very disturbed, a lot of disturbances. Actually, the researchers, they say that mental problems like depression, stress, and others, they tend to be the most prominent problems people face in the 21st century. So it's been predicted more than 5,000 years ago that Sumanda Mataya, there will be always things which drive us crazy, right? This is what it means, Sumanda Mataya. And Manda Bhagya, and always something goes wrong. We plan one thing, but then our plans are going down the drain. That's happening regularly. And result is upadrutaha. Upadrutaha means always depressed. A lot of problems with depression. Sad. People of this age are very sad. Sometimes they fake happiness, put up a good smile, but it doesn't mean that everything is good in life, right? We just don't want to scare others with our depressed face. And so, the most common question is, how are you? And there are many creative answers to that question, right? Do you want to hear the short or full version? Or no complaints? Nobody wants to listen anyway.
Full program.
So, yeah, we would complain, right? But nobody cares. And so we have to say, okay, we're fine. So that's the position of this day and age. Unfortunate. And actually the sages and saints of the past and historically, they always been very compassionate, right? Normally we are very passionate. We are worried about our own lives, and that's why we don't really have time and energy to look at other people's lives and their problems, right? Because we have too many problems on our own, right? Who has enough problems in your life? Please raise your hands. Okay. Pretty much unanimous, right? And so, but saints and sages, they have no problems because they're always absorbed in serving the Supreme Lord, and so they're very happy. But the only reason for their unhappiness is problems other people face, and they always want to help them. Is that okay for translation, or everyone understands English? And so one of those sages, very famous, celebrated sage, Narad Muni. Anyone who's read Puranas, you would know that he is very popular. Appears almost in every scripture. And so the creator of this universe, his name is Brahma. And so Narad Muni comes to Lord Brahma, and he is asking him about us. Many thousands of years ago, this great sage was worried about us. And he was asking, my dear father, because he is the son of Brahma, he says, what about these poor people of the age of Kali? Because they will have so many problems. So how can they solve their problems? And Lord Brahma says, well, there is only one method for solving all problems, and that is to chant the 16 names of the Supreme Lord. Iti sadasakam nam nam kali kalmasha nashanam. And those 16 names, they can destroy all problems of this age. And that's why he concludes that there is no better method in life than to chant the 16 names of the Supreme Lord. And the next verse, he explains which names it is recommended. He recommends to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is the reason we are chanting, because this process has been recommended not for one religion, not for one nation, not for one race, but for everybody who lives in this age. And this age is pretty long. Started 5,000 years ago, and
what
will.
do we think of Jesus Christ?
Yes,
What do we think of Jesus Christ?
Jesus is the Son of God.
Yes. The only one.
And Muhammad is his prophet, and Krishna is the Father. So we're speaking about the same family.
What do you think of the Holy Trinity? The Holy Trinity.
Yes.
The Holy Trinity.
Krishna is the Father, and Jesus is the Son. And that's why there is no contradiction between the religions. Of course, those who are ignorant of the full picture, they will argue, they will see the difference between different religions. But those who know Vedic scriptures, those who know the source, they understand that different religions are just parts of the same picture. But some of them stress more pious activities, others stress more knowledge, development of knowledge, other scriptures stress liberation. But the topmost message of all the scriptures is Krishna Prema, love towards the Supreme Lord, which includes love towards everyone. And what do we miss in this day and age? We miss love, right? People hate each other so much. Oh, I hate you because you're worshiping God in different way. I hate you because your skin color is different. I hate you because you speak different language, etc., etc. So all these material designations, material identifications, they create all these differences. But from the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, which is the fundamental Vedic scripture, we understand that we are not the body, but we are spirit souls. And so we belong to the same origin, the Supreme Lord. So He is the Father of everyone. And today we will read a little bit from Bhagavad Gita. I was requested to read from the chapter 3. Let me see how many of you are okay with understanding my English. Please raise your hands. Okay, all right. Good, thank you. Those of you who sit in the sun, you can move to the shade, into the shade. We still have a little more space here. We don't want you to melt by the end of the class. So before we read the text, which comes in chapter 3, Karma Yoga, text number 27, we will chant responsively an invocational mantra before we read Vedic scriptures. Very simple, consisting of 4 words only. So I'm sure anyone can remember it and chant responsibly. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we will read Sanskrit translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder of International Society for Krishna Consciousness, the person who ancient and eternal spiritual knowledge to the Western world. So Prabhupada ki jai. Prakrite kriyamanani gunakarmani sarvashaha ahankara vimuktatma kartahameti mannate. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the 3 modes of material nature. Purport. 2 persons, one in Krishna consciousness and the other in material consciousness, working on the same level, may appear to be working on the same platform, but there is a wide gulf of difference in their respective positions. The person in material consciousness is convinced by false ego that he is the doer of everything. He does not know that the mechanism of the body is produced by material nature, which works under the supervision of the Supreme Lord. The materialistic person has no knowledge that ultimately he is under the control of Krishna. The person in false ego takes all credit for doing everything independently, and that is the symptom of his nescience. He does not know that this gross and subtle body is the creation of material nature under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as such, by his bodily and mental activities should be engaged in the service of Krishna, in Krishna consciousness. The ignorant man forgets that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Rishikesh, or the master of the senses of the material body, For due to his long misuse of the senses in sense gratification, he is factually bewildered by the false ego, which makes him forget his eternal relationship with Krishna. Prakriti kriya manani gunai karmani sarvashaham karomi mudhatma kartaham iti manyate. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. So there are three modes of material nature, which are goodness, passion, and ignorance, and they are controlling all our activities. And in fact, we are not doing anything. We might think we are doing, right? I might think, oh, I am speaking now. I am sitting and I am moving my hands, etc. But if, God forbid, in few seconds I will become paralyzed, for example, which may happen because it did happen to so many people already, right? I wouldn't be able to do anything. So I wouldn't be able to speak, I wouldn't be able to move. Like someone who gets stroke cannot do anything. And so we can understand there are so many things which are happening to us, and we think we are doing that, right? And we are very proud of this. But it's not us. And this is something many people don't want even to think about. It's very interesting. One time I came across one man who claimed to be an atheist, and he challenged me. He said, "You seem to be a modern man, and it's very surprising that you still believe in God," right? Because his idea was that only like very old people somewhere in remote villages who have no education and no exposure to any modern facilities, only they believe in God. So belief in God is something outdated. And I said, well, and he was, he looked like a professor or something from university. And I said, well, it's not surprising that I believe in God. More surprising that you seem to be a very well-educated man and you still don't believe in God. And he answered, I don't believe in God because there are no proofs of existence of God. Right? Very famous argument. Whoever proved that God does exist? And I said, well, there are many proofs of existence of God, and there is not a single proof of his non-existence. And he said, okay, then you have to prove me that God exists. I said, okay, I can do it in a very simple way. Of course, he was expecting me to come up with so many arguments which he would refute, right? I didn't want to entertain him in this way. I said, I will not bother proving to you. You will prove to yourself that God exists. He said, how will I do that? I said, just try to answer one question I will ask you. He said, what is the question? I said, who is operating your body? And he was a smart man. He got stuck with the answer because he knew very well that that's the proof that we don't control anything, right? He knew very well that if he says, I control my body, I operate my body, I'll ask him a few additional questions. How do you grow your fingernails? Or how do you grow your hair? which chemical elements you put together to grow your hair, right? And how do you make sure that your fingernails grow at this particular rate they're growing? I mean, there are so many things which are happening in our own body, thousands of things. We have no idea how it works. Battery? Huh? Okay. So, yeah, looks like the battery is dying. Everything is dying in this world, including the battery. Jatasya hi dhruvam mrityur dhruvam dhruvajanmamritasya cha. Anything which is created will be annihilated, and everything which is annihilated will be recreated again. So, yeah, most people, I know by experience, if they are healthy, it's even difficult for them to tell which side of their, torso they have a spleen and which side they have their liver, right? If I ask, most of you probably will be wrong with that, with this, which side, on which side is my spleen, on which side is my liver. Most people get it wrong. So we have no idea what's happening in the body unless something goes wrong. Can everyone hear me without microphone? Yeah. Yeah? Okay. So he didn't want to embarrass himself by telling that he is operating this body, because he knew I will corner him with so many questions. But he didn't want to admit that he is not operating his body because he knew what my next question will be. I will say, okay, if you're not controlling your body, who is controlling your body? He might say, nature controls my body. So next question is, who controls nature, right? So anyway, there is ultimately the controller. We are not the controller. So there is a controller who is more powerful than us. And so, but he realized, he got stuck with the question. He said, it's a rhetorical question and I will not answer rhetorical questions. I said, no, this is not rhetorical question, this is real question. And you know the answer very well, you just don't want to admit that you know the answer. This was in England, in London. He became very agitated. He said, young man, you offended my intelligence. And he ran away. I was thinking, what did I do to offend his intelligence? I was just asking him straightforward questions he couldn't answer. So this is like that. So there are two things we need to understand in life, and if we understand these two things, then I think we can achieve perfection in our lives. First thing is that God does exist, but second is a little bit harder, that it's not me. I'm not God, right? The one whom I see in the mirror is not God. And we mention this because there are so many people who believe in this. One guy was saying that before I've realized the absolute truth, I didn't believe in God. But now I've realized I am God. So I have firm faith in God now, right? The God I see in the mirror. But these two things are there, and it's very easy to understand that we are not God. Because God is eternal, omniscient, omnipresent. But yeah, there are so many people who claim that they are gods also. It's not uncommon. My spiritual master, some of you know, Srila Indradyumna Swami. He is conducting annually Festival of India in Poland. Of course, this year is an exception because of the situation. But he shared his experience, how he started his spiritual life. So he figured out a very simple thing, that statistically, Hinduism is the oldest world tradition, right? By statistics. And so many people understand this. All these religions, they are more new creations, but there is a root of all knowledge, of all wisdom, and it is in India. So that's why, Swamis who come from India, they enjoy a lot of popularity, right? Because people are expecting them to carry absolute message, absolute truth. Even today it is true, right? So many Swamis from India, they enjoy a lot of attention from Western people, especially. And so he said he lived in California, San Francisco, and one Swami arrived from India, and there was an advertisement that such and such Swami, the Supreme Personality of God, arriving in the town. Please come and listen to his class. And so he said, me and my friend, they look at each other, we look at each other, and we were thinking, wow, did you ever wanted to see God in, face to face? He said, yes. So it seems like there is an opportunity. Let's go and see God. And so both of them, they were young, like teenagers, well, maybe 18, 19, something. And so they went to the venue where the lecture was held, and they sat in the hall with great anticipation to see the Supreme Lord face to face, right? And so there was a curtain and the stage, and so they were waiting, and things were a little bit delayed. Some people get used to it. IST stands for Indian Standard Time. Some people say Indian Stretchable Time. So, yeah, in India, nobody's in rush, right? Everybody realized himself as eternal being, so no one rushing anywhere. And California is also kind of similar mood. Also, everyone is late everywhere. So anyway, they were sitting and waiting like half an hour later, nothing was happening. Then an hour later, nothing was happening. So everyone was a little bit restless. Why does it take so long? And then he said there was sobbing behind the curtains, and someone came to the stage with eyes full of tears, and he said, I have a very unfortunate news for you to deliver. Such and such Swami, the Supreme Lord, on the way to here to the program, met with a car accident and died on the spot. And they looked at each other, my Guru Maharaj and his friend, and they said, this is very strange. God died, but the sun is still shining, the wind is still blowing, everything is happening as normal. So what happened? God is there and life is going on. So that, of course, put a lot of doubt in their minds that people who claim to be gods, they are real gods. And it is true that actually, even though we may disagree with certain things our Muslim brothers are doing, but we definitely agree with one statement which comes from Quran, which says that there is no other God besides the Supreme Lord. So Supreme Lord is the only God, and there is no other God besides Him. And so this is what Vedic literature also says, and that's why Chaitanya Charitamrita is explaining Ekaleshwara Krishna Arasa Babritya, that Yara Yaicha Nachaya Setanra Sarvamritya, that there is only one Supreme Lord and everybody else is His servant, and everybody is like a puppet in the hands of the Supreme Lord, and everyone is dancing according to His will. And we can understand that no matter how much, it's like we are in the great city of Freiburg, and Freiburg is the city of freedom, right? That's the translation. And freedom is a good thing. We want to be free, but ultimately we can understand that we cannot be absolutely free in this world. We cannot be independent, because are we free from disease? Maybe today it is true, but tomorrow we don't know. Are we free from old age? Actually, it's described that mostly young people look at old people as completely different species of life. They think it will never happen to them, right? And are we free from death? No, we are not free from death. Death is something which will happen to everybody. And next birth, it's also something which is happening with everybody who lives in this world. So we cannot be, as long as we try to become independent, as long as we try to escape in Vedic scriptures, this world is called Durga. Durga means, one of the translations is prison house. So my guru explains that in the same way as prison house has 4 walls, so this material world limits us in 4 ways. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Bhagavad Gita explains. Birth, death, old age, and disease. And the more we try to escape from the influence of this world, the more we become frustrated. In my childhood, I watched one Mexican feature movie which was called Escape. I have to admit, this was the first and the very last Mexican movie I ever watched in my life, because it was so depressing. Very depressing movie, because it is totally against the standards of Hollywood, because Hollywood standard is happy end, right? But this movie didn't have any happy end. And the plot of the movie was very interesting. That one man went against mafia. He tried to expose mafia. Apparently in Mexico there is a very strong mafia also. And of course, then he soon found out that mafia is much more powerful than he thought. And so they framed him and they put him in jail under the false accusation. But then he had some friend who arranged for his escape. So he escaped from the jail, trying to continue fighting with the mafia. But then mafia caught him again and put him in jail again. And then he escaped again. And then he was caught and put back in jail. So mafia was doing that through the hands of the police, corrupt police officers. And so, more than 2 hours movie. Basically, the same thing is happening. He's escaping from jail, he's caught, put in jail, he's escaping, then back to jail, escaping, back to jail. Each time it gets worse and worse. And you know what the end of the movie was? He's still in the jail. That was it. Very depressing. The poor guy tried to do something good, but then he suffered for no reason. I was thinking, what is this strange movie about? But then, after I found out about Vedic literatures and Krishna consciousness, I've realized that actually this movie is depicting our life. The more we try to escape from the influence of this world, the more we suffer. And it is unfortunate that the more we try to enjoy, the more we try to become happy, the more problems we face. And we can see, one of the so-called joys in life, people trying to enjoy, is meat eating. And we can see what it brought this world to. That the scientists, they say that the four last pandemics, they came as a result of meat consumption. Swine flu, bird flu, mad cow disease, and coronavirus. All resulted from meat consumption. And so they say, unless and until people will not stop that crazy suicidal habit, which destroys not only their health, both physical and mental, but destroys the entire environment, destroys the Earth planet. The next pandemic will finish the whole human civilization, because they see the pattern. Each next pandemic gets worse and worse, like that. And so there are many thinkers who are saying that it has to stop immediately, otherwise we will destroy the planet with this crazy habit. And so, this is how it's happening. The more we try to enjoy, the more we try to improve things, the worse it gets. So, Sri Prahlad Maharaj, great sage and saint, in Bhagavatam says that this is the medicine which is worse than the disease. Anyone ever had this experience that you try to cure yourself from this disease, but then the medicine you applied actually made it worse? Anyone had this experience? Okay. So, unfortunately, so many medicines, they have so many side effects that sometimes it's better not to take them at all. And so, therefore, we can see that the attempts to stop suffering only produce more suffering. The attempts to become independent make us more dependent, right? In the same way as attempts to escape from jail result in more and more severe punishment. So, but we want to be free, and we want to solve all the problems, right? How many of you want to be free, and how many of you want to solve all the problems? Okay, so what do we do? As Srila Prabhupada says, the only thing we need to do is to declare our dependence on the Supreme Lord. It's like in America, people celebrate every year their Independence Day, right? July 4th. But Srila Prabhupada said, we should celebrate our dependence on the Supreme Lord. Because He is free. He is the only one who is totally and absolutely free. And because He is all-powerful. And so if we are connected to Him, if we are dependent on Him, Bhagavad Gita says we can become as independent as the Supreme Lord is. Right? In the same way, we cannot travel too fast on our own, right? I mean, the greatest athlete in the world runs with, I don't know, what is the speed they can produce, maybe 20, 25 kilometers per hour, maybe 30 at max, at most, right? Not very great speed. But if you take shelter of the car or the airplane, right, you can move at much greater speed that you could ever accomplish on your own. So in the same way, if we take shelter of the all-powerful and completely independent, we don't have to worry about our powers and our independence. It will happen automatically. So the only thing we need in life is yoga. What we practice is defined as Bhakti Yoga. Yoga means connection, and Bhakti means divine love. So Srila Prabhupada explains that Bhakti Yoga is loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord. So Bhakti Yoga is the topmost solution for every single problem we're facing and the humanity is facing. And the topmost process of Bhakti Yoga is to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And what happens if you chant? How many of you do chant regularly, daily, Hare Krishna mantra? Please raise your hands. Okay. How many of you did experience miraculous changes in your life since you started chanting Hare Krishna mantra? Please raise your hands. Same hands. So those of you who are not practicing Bhakti Yoga yet, those of you who are not practicing this chanting, you can talk to any of our regular practitioners and you can hear unlimited, amazing stories, what kind of things started happening in their lives, very positive, very nice things. And even if they had to face some challenges, this chanting realized them the reason for that and the significance of this challenge as very beneficial. So it is, if you chant Hare Krishna, then everything so-called good and bad, you see that you get the benefit from that. And material life means if good things are happening, it gets boring after a while, right? You're already used to it. But then bad things are happening, then you become depressed. So it's like between boredom and depression, this range, right, of feelings. But if you chant Hare Krishna, it's good, better, and best. So these three choices are there. And so that's why it is highly recommended, and it's not something foreign to Germany. Actually, one project we are developing right now is Unity and Cooperation Project, because you can be very proud of being Germans living in this country. Why? Because the oldest ever proof of spiritual culture comes from Germany. That those of you who know, the oldest object of worship, religious, spiritual worship on the planet, is coming from this country, and he is called the Lion Man. Very famous. More than 20,000 years. And Lion Man has great significance not just for Germany, but for the entire world. It's very interesting that the land where he was discovered, I can't remember the name of the land, the city of Ulm is situated in that land, and that land has the I think coat of arms anyway, but symbol of this land is 3 lions. And the neighboring lands also have lions on their symbol. And so this land where the 3 lions are, the Lion Man was discovered there. And researchers, they recognize that this is the original spiritual culture of this land, worshipping Lion Man. And Lion Man was always worshipped for millions of years in India, right? Still today. And very interesting that our Bhakti Yoga Hare Krishna Society is international, and we have so many temples, hundreds of temples all over the world in different countries, but it's only Germany, the place which is Simhachalam, on the border of, in Bavaria, on the border of Austria and Czech, in the Alps mountains, we have the community, and this is the only community and the only temple which is exclusively dedicated to worshipping Lion Man, Nrsingadev. So it's very interesting. So there are so many correlations which show that, Germans were worshipping Lion Man tens of thousands of years ago, and they still worship him today. So this tradition is still alive. And this tradition, Lion Man, if you think about him, he is uniting human with nature, harmony with nature. This is one symbol for the Lion Man. And another symbol is unity between the past and the present. Tens of thousands of years of the same tradition, the original tradition of the earth. And unity of cultures, unity of countries. Lion Man has been worshipped in India for tens of thousands of years, and he's been worshipped in Germany for tens of thousands of years. And India and Germany, they are pretty far away from each other. So, and the most important thing we need in our life is unity and harmony. How many of you think that we need unity and harmony more than anything else in life? And so we believe that Lion Man is the person who can provide unity and harmony. How many of you have seen Lion Man, either in museum or at least in the picture? Have you noticed that he is smiling? So he's not just a lion man, but he is happy lion man. And we understand that the present situation requires his intervention, because he is the one who destroys evil and who establishes absolute good, which we call Sanatan Dharma. So that's why our message to everyone living in Germany, that this is not something which is foreign to you, it is your culture, it is your tradition, and it is the greatest tradition on earth, and this tradition is the solution to all the problems. And we want to organize one program which will help to raise this specific awareness of very special position of Germany in the spiritual revival of Sanatan Dharma. So, and we want all of you to play active role in this revival. How many of you want to help in the process of spiritual revival? Haribo! So, thank you all for listening, and we spoke for quite a while. So if anyone has any comment or question, especially those of you who are here for the very first time, if you can please raise your hands again if you're here for the very first time. Okay. So if any of you have any comment or question, you can say if that was easy or hard to understand, or if something was relevant for you. Or if you have any questions, you can also ask. Yes.
I have a question about yourself. You are initiated
Myself?
Yeah.
Well, no. Sannyasi does not mean automatically guru. I'm just a sannyasi, traveling monk, and initiations is something which initiating gurus are in different categories. Yes.
Where can I get some information about this lion man?
Information on the Lion Man is easily available on the internet, like Wikipedia page. He has Wikipedia page in every language of the world, practically speaking, because he's very famous. He's the real pride of this country. The very first, they call it zoomorphic sculpture. The very first zoomorphic, the oldest zoomorphic sculpture historically, and first object of worship historically.
Here in Europe, huh?
All over the world, on this planet. 40,000 years, no joke.
Prabhu, but in India they've been worshipping Lord Nrsimhadev for many years.
Yeah, but we speak about the modern science.
Okay.
So they made the carbon dated analysis, and they came to the conclusion that this sculpture is 40,000 years old.
Let us see. Say
Yeah.
Western
Yeah.
worship.
What is the connection of peace, purity and prosperity?
Connection between peace, purity, and prosperity. Well, peace is something which is defined in Bhagavad Gita as coming from three sources: Bhaktaram Yagya Tapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, Yatpamam Santi Vrichyati. So Krishna says, one who is recognizing me as the enjoyer of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all the universes, and the supreme friend of everyone, can attain peace and freedom from the pangs of material misery. So if we connect with the Supreme Lord, we can be very peaceful, even amongst so-called miseries of this world. And purity is automatically achieved by spiritual practice. And prosperity is happening automatically because Dharma produces Artha. So the Supreme Lord is providing everyone, especially those who worship Him, especially those who serve Him. He's very happy to help them in all respects because He wants His devotees to have full facilities to continue their lives without any difficulty or worry.
Don't you please talk about people hating each other? Don't you think that it's different in different parts of the world? Like there are some places where the negativity is very strong and some places it's kind of weak and the culture, you see the people are more cultural and the Christian, they're more advanced religious Christians, so they're a little bit more soft-hearted. Not like that person over here, but they're completely more cultural.
Yeah, definitely. Different people in different parts of the world, they have different levels of consciousness and more or less developed spiritual culture. But everybody needs to be connected to the Supreme Lord. If someone has high culture, it's very important for them not to degrade. And those who have low culture, it's important for them to advance. Because, it's like wealth, right? There have been so many people who had great wealth, actually many billions of euros, but they've lost it. And there are many, many people like that. And so, this is the topmost wealth. Scriptures say that sadhana iti sadhana. Sadhana, which is the word for spiritual practice. And dhana means wealth. And sad means eternal. So this saying is that sadhana iti sadhana. Your spiritual practice is your eternal wealth. It is something which, it's the kind of bank account which no one can rob.
Very nice.
So the more you practice sadhana, the greater wealth you can accumulate, spiritual wealth. That's why one saint, he says that, "Oh my Lord, in the same way as wealthy man always counts his money, thinks of his money, and wants to make more money, so let me have the same mentality in relation to your holy names. Let me always think of you while chanting. Let me count the holy names I've chanted, and let me plan for chanting more." Because chanting is the most important part of our sadhana. All right, so if there are no more questions, then we will continue our program with what will be happening. Yeah, that's the very exciting part of the program, which is prasadam, which is sanctified food. So we have nice lunch or whatever, or maybe dinner for all of you. And before that, we wanted to offer you a special surprise. How many of you like special surprises? That actually our life, and especially our spiritual life very much depends on the blessings of the great sages. And many of you know that the greatest sage, at least in our estimation, who ever came to the Western world was the founder of this movement, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And if we get his blessings, then this is the most powerful thing in life. And we have something special because it's described that certain things, certain relics which are connected to saintly personality carry the same power as this saintly personality. And so I've got very special gift at one point, which was Srila Prabhupada's cardigan, which is his sweater. He was wearing for quite a long time actually. And if anyone is interested, you can see and even touch Prabhupada's cardigan. And
Can we make photo also?
Huh?
Photo also?
you can take photo, yes.
Not wear it.
It's a special relic which normally is displayed in the museum. But today is a special day for all of you. So we can give you this opportunity before the lunch or dinner, whatever you call it. So thank you all very much for attending, and I hope that all of you will continue practicing bhakti yoga, and those who haven't started yet, please try it for yourself and see how much it is beneficial. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Jai Gaur Premanande.
Rasayana Sagar Maharaj ki jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.